The following is a Live the Dream Media production.
Welcome to Conversations with Ed. Please make sure to subscribe and share.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Conversations with Ed. Today we have a really special guest, a good friend and a person that's very active in our community, Dr. Dan Streeter, Superintendent of Marana Public Schools. Welcome, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
Give us a little background on Dan getting to Marana.
Yeah. First of all, again, thank you for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this. So this is year 4 as the Marana Unified School District Superintendent. It's been a unique ride as we had to experience COVID during some of those 4 years, but to have some great things happening in the district. Prior to coming to Marana, I served as the superintendent in the Humboldt Unified School District, which is in the Prescott Valley area in Yavapai County. Actually, my family and I were up there for about 11 years. I was a high school principal, assistant superintendent, and then a superintendent for 5 years. My path to Marana is a little interesting. I wasn't looking to leave Humboldt, actually. We had some really good things going on up there. And a good friend of mine, I was in a national superintendent certificate program. And a part of that program, I had a mentor, Dr. Nick Clement, who is a longtime superintendent of the Flowing Wells School District, also served as my chair on my dissertation committee. And Nick was up visiting me in Humboldt a little over 4 years ago and just doing kind of the mentor-mentee visit. And while he was up, we did a tour of my district. I showed him an elementary school where we were doing some really innovative competency-based learning things. We were actually getting ready to eliminate grade levels altogether and just do competency-based education. Showed him a middle school where we were doing personalized learning, a school within a school model, 100% personalized learning academy. Shared with him our strategic plan, how we had brought about 200 community members together, developed a profile of a graduate, talked about what we wanted the future of Humboldt to be, and kind of backwards designed a strategic plan out of that. And then I took him to lunch. And Prescott Valley is a community that's much like Marana. When you go to lunch, the owner of the restaurant is going to be a parent in your district.
Right.
And we walked into lunch, and it was Nick Kalia, a good friend of the district up there. And we started talking, and he apologized for missing the last superintendent advisory committee meeting and promised to be at the next one. And then we were talking about his daughter's volleyball team and the great things that were happening at the high school, and kind of wrapped that up. And I sat down with Nick, and Nick said, "Hey, there's going to be a superintendent opening down by me. I think you might be a great fit for it." Of course, he was talking about the Marana Unified School District, and Dr. Doug Wilson was getting close to announcing his retirement. I wasn't looking to move for all the reasons that I just said, but I started doing some research, reading some media, reading governing board minutes, reading town council minutes, read the future plan for the town of Marana, and told my wife, I don't know that we can pass up this opportunity. I think we need to look into this a little deeper. So we did. We threw our hat in the ring and interviewed with the governing board and was fortunate to get this position. Like I said, I wasn't looking to move, but when a community like Marana presents an opportunity like this, who could pass that up?
Well, I know you did your due diligence because you called me for lunch.
Yes.
Before you took the job, even, you know.
We were out at the stockyards.
And talked about the community. Well, you know, when you came on board, you came at just the right or just the wrong time. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Chromebooks. And when Marana decided to do Chromebooks for all the students, I wasn't necessarily a big fan. Big expense and all this kind of stuff. And different people like Dan Post, the late Dan Post, who was a member of the school board, said this is going to be great and it's going to help our people. Tell us how those Chromebooks helped get the Marana School District through COVID.
Yeah, well, I love what you said. Was it the right time or the wrong time? I don't know. I think there was a little bit of both, right? I certainly coming into a new superintendency and introducing yourself to the community during COVID and some of the important decisions that needed to be made during that time were a challenge. I think maybe it being the right time was I was still building new relationships. Right. So while the challenge was I wasn't sure which voices I really needed to be listening to, I think the positive was I didn't know which voices I need to be listening to, right? So it allowed me to kind of build some of those relationships organically. But to your question, I think kudos to the Marana School District, the community of Marana, Dr. Wilson prior to me, and the governing board, Mr. Post for sure. Having the foresight to do this one-to-one initiative and get Chromebooks in the hands of students. Certainly when we went through that COVID time, Marana was really positioned to be able to make that transition relatively seamlessly, right? Or at least as seamlessly as you could. Students had technology. We were able to move education into Google Classrooms. The challenge was making sure that we had Wi-Fi around the community, right. But that was the only issue. We had the devices. We were able to then put our focus into making sure that we got hotspots out to our students. So I think it proved to really put Marana in the driver's seat.
Well, I think, originally when that program came out, I think high school and middle school students could take the Chromebook home. The younger students had to leave them at school. But when the COVID pandemic started, all the children were able to take a Chromebook home and have access to learning. I understand Wi-Fi was a problem in outlying areas and stuff, but at least all of our kids in the Marana district had a computer if they could get the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody who asked for a Wi-Fi was given that. So we were able to provide that. So, and certainly this isn't an endorsement for that being the best educational delivery model. But in that time, in that moment, the actions of the Marana Unified School District put us in a position to help provide some academic supports to our students.
Let's talk a little bit about growth. I don't want to say how many hundreds of years ago that I graduated from Marana High School, 57 kids in my class. It's now my understanding that Marana High School may be the largest high school in Pima County at about 2,300 students.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about growth and growing pains in Marana
School District. So I'll start with this. I think you can attest to this. Is one of the great things about Marana is there's small town values that are still in place.
Yes.
And that is the most critical part of managing this growth is maintaining those small town values. I get to be on the show with the mayor. We have each other's cell phone numbers.
Right.
We exchange communication quite frequently. My business card for my parents, it has my cell phone number on it. When you get parents that are moving into the area from somewhere else, they're not used to having the cell phone for the superintendent. But that's the way we operate in Marana, is you do have the cell phone number of the superintendent. This is small town values, but we're turning into a big town. And we're dealing with a lot of growth, kind of two ways. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but I might be just talking to the preacher here.
Right.
We have the North Marana area, and then we have some of the infill in some of the other parts of the community. So we are having to look at how do we manage growth. You hit it on the head. 2,300 students at Marana High School. It's a big campus. In Pima County, you're talking about Tucson High, Sunnyside High, and Marana High is really your three largest high schools. We are fortunate. Our community supported the passage of a bond this last November, or I should say November of 22, which is allowing us to build a new K-8, which I have a feeling you'll have a question about here in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
So I won't get too far into that. But we're looking at where we're going to need schools, what the next 5-year plan looks like, what the next 10-year plan looks like, what the next 15-year plan looks like, where we spend as much time with demographers as we do with developers. What are the developments? What's the timelines? What's the housing that we're looking at? And what is the ratio of school-age children moving into the area?
Talking about growth, and I am going to ask you about the new school. First of all, I'm a big fan of the Dove Mountain K through 8. I think it's a wonderful program. Been there many times, and Twin Peaks was expanded to be a K through 8, and I have friends that teach there, and Kristen Hunt, who now is at the middle school, but she was there at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've been there many times. I understand the new school in North Marana. First of all, when do you think it'll start and be open? And I understand it'll be a K through 8 as well.
Yeah, so we call it the new K8 and Gladden 2 is the official name for right now. And what's exciting about that project is it is a K8, and you hit it on the head. We currently have Dove Mountain, the C-STEM K8 up in the Dove Mountain area. Obviously, Twin Peaks and Continental Ranch was transitioned into a K8. This will be our third K8 model. It will be in the Gladden 2 area, so still North Marana, Clark Farms, and Mike Etter. We've held, several community meetings already where we've been gathering some input from parents in the area. We've been working closely with the principal at Gladden Farms and the principal at Dove Mountain, talking a little bit about school design and lessons learned and what that looks like. I'm excited. We're looking at the fall of 2025 for the opening of our newest K8.
I'm pretty excited about that. As you know, we've always worked well together, the town and the school district, and we share some resources.
Absolutely.
At Coyote Trails School, I think Dan Johnson's still the principal.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loves him. And, we kind of share that playground there. Part of the time when the school's out or weekends or summer, we use that park and restroom there along the trail. And during the school day, you use it. And, we've been able to share resources. I know the school district was meeting in our town hall for a long time. And, we want to be able to share things because if you do well, we do well. Yep. And it's a partnership here. We don't care who gets the credit. We're not in the education business. You are. So we'll help you anywhere we can. So I was listening to a show the other day, and Tom Carlson, a member of your school board, was on there, and he was talking about the new third grade level reading process and how so many schools are not meeting that level. Could you talk to us a little bit about what you're trying to do at that third grade level or around that third grade level to bring kids back up to reading level?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I jump into that, let me just talk. I want to go back to something you said about that partnership between the town and the school district. We talk about small town values. It's that symbiotic relationship between the town and the school district that is a part of those small town values, right? We know that as the district goes, the town goes. As the town goes, the district goes. And one of the responsibilities that I have as the superintendent of the Marana Unified School District is to be the community school district, the connection with the town of Marana. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's really critical to who we are and who Marana overall is. Third grade reading score. So, coming out of this, so not a Marana issue, right? This is a national issue. Coming out of the pandemic, we saw student achievement scores drop in really students who really struggled with early literacy. And we needed a quick call to action. And this came from, it was a principals meeting where we were sharing some of our literacy data, and we saw really kind of the lag and the drop in our literacy scores. And we didn't need to spend a lot of time talking about how we got there. We needed to put our focus in how we were going to solve it and where we were going to go forward. So we immediately employed a literacy task force, and this task force made some immediate changes, restructured our elementary school day, put more adults in front of kids so that students were getting smaller reading groups and reading interventions with trained adults in front of them. And then we talked about what was the base curriculum that we needed to have in place. And this is the year where we are implementing a new reading and writing curriculum across all of our K-6 levels, really with the focus on making sure that kids are learning to read so that when they get to grades 7 through 12, then they're transitioning to reading to learn, right? But we have to solve this early literacy issue. So in Marana, you're seeing a full-fledged push to increase literacy scores. I will tell you, we're seeing positive results. And at the end of October, the state of Arizona, the Arizona Department of Education, released their letter grades. And Arizona is on a letter grade system. We rate our schools A through F. And if you go back to 2019, so I'm actually going to go pre-pandemic. And if you go back, the big news in Marana was Tortolita Middle School. At that time, Tortolita Middle School was labeled an F school. That's a failing school by the state of Arizona. A couple weeks ago, Tortolita Middle School got their grade. They are now a B school. They have a B rating by the state of Arizona. That's tremendous improvement.
Explain a little bit about the detail of how that comes about.
Yeah. So the way that the letter grade system works in Arizona, we look at a couple of different factors. You're looking at, through achievement testing, student proficiency. You're looking at student growth. What type of growth are your students making year over year? Then we look at subgroup data. How are your English language learners performing? How are your special education students performing? We look at accelerators. Do we have students who are highly proficient? How are we approaching the education of our highest performing students? And then we look at remediation approaches. How are we moving our minimally proficient students, our struggling readers, into proficiency? So all of these different metrics get factored into a grade calculation. So I share the Tortolita news because what I also want to say is in 2019 in Marana, it wasn't just the F school. We had 2 D schools and we had a handful of C schools.
Right.
Today, we do have 1 C school. We're still working with Marana Middle School, but we have 16 A and B schools.
Wow.
The focus on student achievement, you're starting to see the results from that. And it was really a concerted effort that we can maintain small town values, we can maintain this incredible culture, and we can have high expectations for student achievement and start to deliver on that.
Well, those kids are our future, so we need to teach them well. The school purchased a piece of property over in Continental Ranch, used to be a medical facility. Yeah. And since both of our high schools are huge, although I think they're doing pretty well, but they are huge schools, you're going to open a new school facility over there as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So yes, both Mountain View and Marana High are doing very well. MCAT, our alternative school, is also doing very well. I'm the proud parent of a Mountain View graduate this last year who is off at college and doing well. So thank you to the teachers at Mountain View. Right. But you're right. Both of our comprehensive high schools are pretty close to capacity, being at capacity. Right. So we needed to come up with a way to ease some of that enrollment pressure. We went to the state and we asked the state, we said, we need some different funding from you. The state typically will fund school repairs or will fund new school construction. And we went to the state and said, look, we know that when it comes to new school construction, we qualify for about 400 students. The amount of money that you're going to give us for 400 students is not going to get us very far with new school construction. Right. What if you did something different? What if you funded us for a remodel of an existing building that we own for high school programming? And the state took it to what's called the School Facilities Board, and they got it approved. The state's really excited about this because this might be the future of funding schools in Arizona, at least one component, a new component of it. And Marana's at the forefront of this. So we got a grant. We actually qualified for $12 million of state money to go into the old urgent care building off of Silver Bell Road in Continental Ranch, 35,000 square foot building. We're going to be remodeling that. And in the fall of 25, the same time that we're opening the new K-8 in North Marana, we'll be opening some high school programming, a personalized learning academy for high school students layered with career and technical education programs to put 400 students on that campus. Those 400 students will be some permanent students and students throughout the day coming from Mountain View and Marana to CTE programs.
So will that be partially STEM and maybe partial CTE, JTED type programming?
Yeah, the answer to that question is yes. More importantly, we're in the process of surveying our students, what are the CTE programs that you want, and surveying our community. What are the skills that you need students to come out of our schools with? Where can we match up? What are the industries that we can build CTE programming around? We're in this great opportunity in Marana where we can truly create a cradle to career and post-career environment. We need to make sure we're providing the workforce for our community.
Well, I know of CTE young people that have come out of the Marana High School program. And I know a couple of them went right into a $50,000 a year job, which unfortunately is more than a school teacher makes. But, a lot of you and I have had this conversation. Young people need education after high school, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a four-year college. You could be an electrician or a plumber or an equipment operator or a framer or a planner and make really good money to support you and your family.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I think this kind of goes back to that earlier comment I made. It doesn't have to be either or, it's both and, right? We can offer advanced placement courses for students that really see a traditional four-year education in their future. At the same time, we can offer quality programs that provide students opportunities for post-secondary success. To your point, our welding program at Marana High School is top-notch. You can see it in the town.
The student I was talking about was a welder, actually.
Yeah, so we see it in the downtown Marana roundabout. You see the work off of Tangerine Road, and you're right. We have students leaving our welding program going right into fabrication, right?
Well, Dad, there's so many things happening in the school district. I have questions that would take us 2 hours, but I know neither one of us have that much time. But talk a little bit about open enrollment and what that has meant to the Marana school system.
Yeah, well, Arizona is an open enrollment state, that meaning that students can enroll in any school that they want, regardless of where they live, provided there's room. And you're seeing that in Marana. We have several schools that have become really high-profile, popular choices for parents, regardless of where they live in Pima County. Dove Mountain, Twin Peaks, Coyote Trail, Rattlesnake Ridge. You're starting to see a lot of students come in. That's good for our school district. Usually, once we get some students in our schools, those families are a couple years later are ready to buy homes in Marana, right? So that kind of goes back to that partnership that we have, and so we try to bring in as much open enrollment as we can based on space. We have to serve the students and families that live in our area. I think one of the challenges that you're going to start seeing in Marana, and you talked about this earlier, Marana High School and Mountain View are full. They're really at capacity, which is going to limit the opportunities to take more open enrollment students, which is why continuing to identify ways to increase capacity in our schools and looking at growth patterns in the future will become so important.
Folks, I'm going to put Dr. Dan on the spot because we've had so many private conversations. We are friends besides being colleagues. And we've talked about the need for another high school. And I'm old enough that Marana Middle School was the high school when I went to high school. And we were talking about how opening up capacity, a new high school is $70, $80, $90 million, which the state doesn't have and we don't have. So we're trying to come up with creative ways. And you had told me that of the 12 elementary schools in the district,
correct,
8 or 9 of them have enough room for a 7 and 8 wing. That's not to say it's going to happen. Could you go into detail what that would entail and what that might mean to the community in the future? And it might be 10 years from now in the future.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and there's a couple of layers to this, right? It's And you've said it. It's really finding innovative, unique ways to build out capacity, to enhance educational programming, academic programming for our students, and really plan for the future. The K-8 model is something that we do have in Marana. We've talked about Dove Mountain, Twin Peaks, and New Gladden Farms. There is an opportunity to open up that conversation to parents throughout MUSD. Is the K-8 model something that you want to look at other schools that could fill some open space? We could add a little bit of capacity, open up capacity at other places, and really plan for what is the future. What does a third high school in Marana look like? That's one of the hot questions that I get, right? Is when are you going to open a third high school? And it's their numbers that we're watching, right? And so all of that plays into that. Parents, the questions that parents are going to have about a shift to a K-8 model is, what does that mean for my students' programming at the middle school level? Right? What does that mean academically? What does that mean for extracurricular co-curriculars? Right? Middle school athletics are very popular in Marana. So are our music programs. I think one of the strengths in Marana is we've held on to music. We've actually enhanced our music programming while other districts have been cutting that. So I think as we talk about, is there an opportunity to look at K-8s? The other side of that coin is, what do parents want to make sure that includes? And make sure that we're not reducing opportunities for kids along the way. I have some ideas for that too. I think that might be another show.
Well, Dan, we're running out of time. I want to thank you for coming and talking to us today. We're thrilled that you're the new superintendent. We have a great working relationship. Marana schools are phenomenal. I still have family members that are in Marana schools, and we're really thrilled with what's going on. And please come back and talk to us again.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me on. I love being a part of this community. I love being one of the cogs in the wheel, if you will. So anytime, I'd love to be back.
Thank you.